Thanks very much indeed for joining us, Thio. First up, isn't it just really true that Beijing does the absolute minimum whenever it comes to any pressure on it to do anything about appreciating and allowing the yuan to become more flexible?
Well, I think those criticisms may have some merits because whenever we see the adjustment to the Chinese yuan after it's been refloated, it is a very minor step, and they are certainly not comfortable with any large moves in the spot onshore dollar China. So I think from that perspective, you can see that they do not want to use the exchange rate as a main tool for economic adjustments, but any adjustment in the exchange rate is clearly in line with the policy to internationalize the Chinese yuan in, let's say, 5 to 10 years' time, and to answer to critics that the Chinese yuan is being artificially suppressed.
Yeah, we did see those trade numbers as well. Exports unexpectedly rebounding and coming in at a record. And we had Dominique Strauss-Kahn making those remarks, saying that the yuan at the levels that it is at the moment really not necessarily covering up global imbalances, and it's a side. Well, I guess it's a diversionary story here. But overall, doesn't that export number just show how much the yuan is overvalued, or undervalued, should I say?
Well, I think there's a little bit of a simplistic look at it, because whilst China's trade surplus is very strong and it rebounded, unexpectedly, the key crux of that is that China's competitiveness is not just lying on the exchange rate front, but also in the very cheap land labor cost that's found in the country. So I think from that relative basis, obviously it's going to be very difficult to unseat China from its competitive advantages, and just using the exchange rate as a tool to erode away China's competitiveness will be very difficult. So I think it's clear that Chinese yuan is very competitive, but clearly there are other factors of production as well in place that makes China a very competitive exporter.
Okay, away from what's going on in China, what about the overall picture for Asian currencies? A lot of people are tipping the won in South Korea to do well this year. What about yourself?
Yes, we do like the South Korean won, although we think that there's going to be more volatility in store, because although the Korean won does look quite stable and prone to appreciation on, let's say a 6 to 1 year time frame, in the very short term, we do see that there are still clouds in the horizon, be it from Europe or from China, that could still unseat risk-taking. So I think from that perspective, the won is likely to drift within a fairly broad trading range of about 1270 to 1350. In the meantime, it's going to be very difficult to find more directional play in Asian currencies, particularly against the US dollar.
Thio, I want to just turn to what's been happening in the euro. Just about a month and a half ago, we were looking at very, very dark days for the single currency. It's rebounded since then. Do you think that predictions of its demise were greatly exaggerated?
Well, I think the factors that caused this big sell-off in the euro are still in place. I think in terms of the risk factors out there, there are clearly still quite a few, be it the Europe stress tests or the risk of some sovereign default. So those risks are still in place. However, I think what's happening right now in the markets that has caused the euro to rebound is that players have already been very short the euro, and heading into the summer illiquidity that we tend to experience, there's not a huge appetite to continue to run very large exposures in markets. So the liquidation of some of these positions caused the euro to rebound, but clearly the fundamentals haven't really shifted all that much. Going ahead, I think the European bank stress test results will be quite key as to how the euro could perform in the next 3 to 6 months. If they manage to clear that hurdle, for example, if you were to use history as a bit of example, and the US bank stress test as well gave the US stock markets a leg up, hopefully that will be the situation likewise for Europe, and they will find their way out of the troubles. But a lot of it would still be dependent on markets' perception of where the risk in Europe still lies and the downside risk to the euro dollar.
Yeah, so more downside risk. Do you have a target for year's end, Thio, on this?
Well, our house view is still quite bearish on the euro. We still think that there's a lot of risk on the horizon that have not cleared the market yet. And the pain that Europe has to go through in terms of restructuring and the economic pain will probably weigh in on the euro for some a period of time. So I think the risks are clearly still tilted to the downside, and the euro being a new funding currency, it's not going to help it either.
Thio, thanks a lot for that. Thio Chin Loo, there, senior currency strategist at BNP Paribas.